Okay, so I've come to a conclusion with my headers. So already went back and forth with the customer service people at Summit Racing. They basically just said, those are supposed to fit your frame. They also cared if I had air conditioning. So basically they hit the frame and I couldn't do too much about that aside from drastically repositioning the engine. So I decided to return them, and I happen to still filing that return request, just waiting back for them. But anywho, found some replacements on Craigslist, and I think you'll agree it's a bit of an improvement. So yeah, I got some side pipes. So these are some kind of generic fender well headers. I don't know what they are, but I bought them off Craigslist for 200 bucks. They're stainless steel, and they're shiny and pretty, and they'll dump it out, and they'll dump it outside the frame, which is kind of what I wanted anyway. I was okay with going to run some standard dual exhaust inside the frame, but I always really wanted that hot rod side pipe look. So to do that, I did have to drastically modify my plans. But it does mean it sort of fits the cab a little bit better. So first thing is I needed to reroute the steering shaft. So I've gotten rid of the stock steering shaft, and I got some couplers and some double D kind of generic steering shaft. And I've also had to relocate the position. So the original steering column position for the, if it were on an S10, would have been about right here, which is why I cut a hole in the firewall. But I needed a little lower. So that way the steering shaft will run below the headers and then not even be in the way. Next thing I got to do is mount the brake master cylinder and booster, but I still don't 100% know where I'm going to put that, so I'm going to wait till I do a final mount on the steering column and kind of have an idea of what I'm going to do for the seat before I mount that. As far as the steering column goes, I got a little ahead of myself and I added a piece of angle iron from kind of like A-pillar area to A-pillar area. Bent and welded the steering column mount out of the S10. So that's kind of mostly rigidly attached on the top side. I still left this loose so I can bend it, so I can get the angle, because right now it's going to actually sit with the steering wheel a little bit lower and the steering shaft a little bit higher, just for the U-joint angles to work out. And I already test fit. That's the dashboard. Dashboard comes to about right here, and we're nice and centered there. I've also made a little notch right there so I can drop the floor down. The floor isn't actually bolted in, but it's in there enough to be a good platform. And as you can see, I have the finest seat, the box of kitty litter. The actual seating position is going to probably put the seat just a little lower, probably about right there. But this is a good mock-up for, knee room and whatnot. Still deciding if I'm going to use that bench seat or if I'm going to get something out of the junkyard. Or the swap meet, who knows. Still no transmission. Just haven't had a chance to get a transmission yet. Still debating on whether I want to go 5-speed manual or put like a turbo 350 or 700 R4 in this. Who's to say? But anyway, that's how that's going. So what we're going to do next is kind of go a little bit closer to mounting the steering column. First thing I'm going to do is pull these headers off. So this is only just kind of mocked up in place. So, as you can see, I've got a 30 spline to double D shaft U-joint right here. I'm going to need another one for right here, the end of there, which I have right here. So what that'll let me do is run the double D shaft, a little section right here to a U-joint to right here. I'm going to have to raise this guy up just a little bit because the shaft is hitting the frame right there. I sort of am thinking about notching the frame to clear, but that seems like a problem looking for a solution. So, got my shaft, or my U-joint rather. I've got a piece of shaft somewhere. I think I left it in here. Oh, there it is on my toolbox. So that is a section of the shaft that will fit in like so. Ooh, too far. We want it to be able to articulate. This guy will actually slot into the steering column itself, and actually I'm going to trim that just a little bit. So I want this to be up as high as possible, and in this case I've got just a little bit more room, so I'm just going to trim just like an 1/8 inch off of this, or like a 1/4 inch off of this. So, to the bandsaw. Alright, so back to the joint. You can install that like so. And then that'll fit into there, and I'll still have a little bit of wiggle room to go up and down. So now the next step is to cut this shaft so that it will nest in there nicely. I'm going to also cut that a little bit just so I can raise that up again, like I said, and we'll get a nice straight shot. So, it is time for Le Sharpie, and I will cut that right there. Okay. We'll cut that, and then we'll zip that with the angle grinder. Okay, so as you can see, this guy's kind of sitting right around there or so. and I need this to sit in line with that. So I'm going to zip it there and there and lift up the column. Alrighty then. Let's see how it fits. Okay, that's kind of in there. Going to cinch up these pieces, and then that one's going to actually get a whatchamacallit, hole drilled through it, and we'll mount a bolt through it like the factory. But that looks pretty much kind of like a mounted steering wheel. The issue is going to be with, how is it down here? Okay, so I'd say right about there is perfect for our steering wheel, our mounting of our steering wheel. But what I'm going to probably want to do is actually shorten up some of these links just a little bit. Oh yeah, that's just barely not touching. But hey, barely not touching is still not touching. Alrighty then. So yeah, I'm going to make a bracket to weld onto that, and that'll then bolt onto the cab there and there. I got two nice bolt holes. So that'll work nicely. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there and not touch anything. Alright, I got this piece of scrap. What I'm going to do is we're going to go from, I'm going to say about there. It's going to be about yay long. We'll cut that straight like that. Center line, it's going to be there. I'm going to lay that out like so. And then, you know, that really won't be too much. Yeah, anyway, it'll be fine. Because it actually sits kind of low. Anywho, we'll give that a shot. I'm going to cut that there and there on the bench shear, and then trim that with maybe some tin snips, maybe the plasma cutter. We'll see whatever's easiest. Alright, and I remembered bandsaw. Okay, so I don't know if I caught that, but I did just cut this little arc out on a bandsaw. So let's see. Yeah, that actually looks pretty good. So what I'll do is, with this guy laying here like so, we are going to mark the positions with a Sharpie, drill some holes, put some bolts in, and then I can tack that in, and then it'll be permanently mounted. This is obviously also just some thin stuff. I'm gonna obviously reinforce it once it's on there, but it's at least temporarily, permanently mounted. All right, back in. Gotta make sure that's somewhat horizontal. Alright, and there we go. Hole there and a hole there. So, I'll grab the relevant drill bit and cut a hole. Now I'll take our little deburring tool and clean up those holes. Yep, a little more. Cool. Alrighty then. That is that. So let's go get some, this ended up being 1/4 inch, so let's get some 1/4 20 screws and mount her up. Once again, inside. And that's lined up. Now, if only I had a good way of getting to that. Oh, yeah. This must be thrilling content. All right, piece mounted. Steering column is a thing. Let's just check and make sure that a plug wire can get on there. Okay, yeah, nothing's fouling. Cool. So now, let's turn on the welder and weld that in. Alrighty then. It's definitely welding thin sheet metal to slightly less thin sheet metal. So nothing too crazy, but that is a steering shaft mounted. I can steer the truck! I've never been able to do that. One minor concern though is that you might notice that this shaft comes out at this angle and then it switches direction. horizontal right there. That's a little bit of a problem because it now means that my steering wheel is 90 degrees crooked. I can just adjust that because this is technically just on random splines. So I can just clock this by 90 degrees, but I kind of feel like that's cheating. So I'm going to see if I can find a steering or a double D shaft like that that's not clocked that way. Or some sort of adapter coupler. But in the meantime, it does things. So let's also double check. I have the header. So, moment of truth. Will this fit? Okay, that's in there. And again, let me just confirm with that spark plug because that was pretty tight. Okay. Yeah, once again, just like down there, very close to touching, but not touching. And if I end up, let's say, the engine gets lifted up in the back just a little bit, so like me, then that gives me even more room. Which it might get lifted a little bit, or it might stay exactly like this. Usually you want the engine to sit a couple degrees back, which usually means, well, engine should sit back a little bit, but to compensate, the pad where the carburetor mounts is offset a couple degrees, so in theory you just make that flat, and that's kind of a rough, good look. And actually where we're sitting right now, we are about 1 degree canted backwards on this flange, so probably about 3 to 4 degrees on the engine itself. So if I go right there, we get a little more clearance, and we are perfect. So yeah, success. We have a steering column, we have headers. I'm going to probably take care of that off camera, just brace this up a little bit. Now I can fill in the firewall because I know where all that stuff is. But I'll brace up this piece. Probably take these screws and flip them around so that the screw is coming out, and then it's captive so that it's welded to the plate. That'll just keep everything nice and straightforward and simple for installation, because we want to think about installing this stuff. We don't want to just make it and then assume we'll never have to deal with it ever again, because that's not the case. And when I'm done with this whole thing, this cab is coming off because I'm going to have to finish weld everything that I did to it. So I want basically the steering column to be quick disconnect. I want the all the other stuff to come apart nice how it should, and then I will be able to lift the cab off nice and easy. But anywho, yeah, next step up is going to be the pedal box.